Okay, you guys, we are in Japan, and this is going to be another short one. I'm excited. And what's interesting to me is we're still aware of some of these artworks, even though, we might not think we know anything about Japanese history, art history, or Chinese art history. There's always things that, like, oh yeah, I know that one. So here we go. Okay, learning objectives. See if anything sounds fun there to do a paper on. And then our timeline, and I highlighted some things about the tea ceremony because, wow, this is a huge presence in Japanese art history. So lots of good stuff right here in the timeline. Okay, modern Japan. All right, here we have our first, woodblock printer artist. I'm not saying that very articulately, but this is Ando Hiroshige. This is Plum Estate, Kamido, from 100 Famous Views of Edo from the Edo period. I think it's beautiful. I love the colors. So Ando Hiroshige, the artist who designed the woodblock print Plum Estate, Kamido, which inspired the European painter Vincent van Gogh with its coloration and abstract quality. How about that? I just love that. So this would have been kind of early in Van Gogh's career, because remember, he never became famous during his lifetime, but a lot of his stuff was the 1880s, so this would have been early in his career, very early. It's like in school. So Kano Motonobu Zen, forgive me if that sounded disrespectful. I wasn't trying to be. The rise of the Ashikaga clan in the 14th century introduces the art historical period, the Muromachi. So Muromachi is it's like, in Europe or the States, it would be like an art movement, the equivalent of an art movement. And they call it an art historical period. So period. The precision of the brushwork and the ink lines in Zen patriarch Zhang Yan Zixian sweeping with a broom marks it as a product of the Kano school of painting. So precision. This is the Kano school. Interesting. Here's Seshutoyo. This is splashed ink, which is Haboko method of painting. It's a landscape. And this is so interesting to me because, well, first of all, the artist who painted this Muromachi landscape is Seshutoyo. The Japanese artist who went to China and was able to study with Ming masters is Seshutoyo. The technique that requires the painter to visualize the image, load the brush with ink, and then create the painting with rapid strokes and some dripping of the ink onto the paper is Haboku. So if you look really carefully at this artwork, it's kind of amazing. So can you imagine just making, going really rapid? So you've already visualized what you want to present there, and then, there's some dripping. Really, I think that would be so difficult to control. But, it's kind of abstract. Sometimes with abstract, you just go with it. I think this is so gorgeous. I want to just go and have a picnic there. The Kokedera Moss Garden. Gorgeous. And it's so amazing that it's from the 14th century. I love it. Okay, here is the Kara Sensui Dry Landscape Garden. Dry landscape means that it's just made with dry objects, so there's no plants. It's just like a meditation garden where, the kind of garden where they rake the stones So that's what this is like. Dry landscape gardens became very popular in Japan during the Muromachi period. Karen Sensui, which means dry landscape gardens, were helpful for meditation, which is a facet of Zen Buddhism. A characteristic trait of Zen Buddhism is an emphasized rigorous discipline and personal responsibility. Did you know the Chinese term for Japanese Zen is Chan? That's interesting. The upper echelon of the warrior class showed the greatest affinity for Zen teachings, which emphasized rigorous discipline and personal responsibility. Okay, you gotta stand up if you're gonna be a warrior. Here's the White Heron Castle, constructed in 1346. It's really amazing. The socio-political reality of the Momoyama period that determined the design of the White Heron Castle was territorial conflict. The brilliant white and the winged rooftops are meant to symbolize a bird taking flight, and this is the best preserved castle in Japan. I think, wow, it's so old. How do these things last when they're made out of wood? So this is Kanu Itoku, Chinese lions. And they look like Chinese dragons to me in the face, you know? But okay, that's just their style. The animals, and this is interesting that this is a note, that are depicted in this Moniyama, no, it's not that, it's Momoyama, period 6-panel screen are lions. Kano painters of the Momoyama period were asked to create folding screens and sliding panels for structures built for the warlords. The 6-panel paintings that were used as sliding doors were referred to by the Japanese term Fusama. Okay, here is another pair of 6-panel screens. This is Hasegawa Tohaku, the pine forest. Again in the Momoyama period. The mystery, wandering, and near formlessness of Hasegawa's Tohaku's pine forest invokes the precept of Zen Buddhism, which is the illusory nature of mundane reality. I wish it was more illusory. Okay, so this is the Taian Tea House, located in the Myokian Temple in Kyoto. The artist's name is Sen no Rikyu. Sen no Rikyu was a renowned tea master and a tea house designer. The manner for entry of a tea house was to enter on hands and knees. In the Momoyama period, the Taian tea house was built at the Myokian Temple in Kyoto. The aesthetics and rituals of the tea ceremony were affected by the design of the tea house because the interior space was dim and tiny to enhance togetherness. That's kind of sweet. This is a Kogen tea ceremony water jar. The term that is used to describe this tea ceremony water jar of the Momoyama period is a Kogen. An accurate description of Shino-ware, this is Shino glazed stoneware, is simple forms with rough surfaces. This is the east facade of the Katsura Imperial Villa. The aesthetic of the Katsura Imperial Villa in Kyoto is described as tastefully subtle, with elements of courtly gracefulness and proportion. One of the most important features of the Katsura Imperial Villa is that the doors can be opened to the outside in order to achieve the harmonious integration of building and garden. It's all about, it's all so pleasant and calm. The design aspect of the Katsura Imperial Villa that can be considered most emblematic of the Japanese residential architecture is open doors that create harmonious integration with the garden. Kind of like indoor-outdoor. Okay, this is another 6-panel screen. And this is another important one. So Hanami Koetsu Boat Bridge writing box. It's lacquered wood with sprinkled gold and lead overlay. And I would never call those colors dull. So if that should come up in the test, the colors are not dull. They're, gold is bright. This lacquer writing box, called Boat Bridge by Hanami Koetsu, is an example of the Rinpa school. Hanami Koetsu was a talented Edo calligrapher and ceramicist who also designed lacquer objects. Lacquered. The school of painting that features vivid color. I don't know how vivid it is, but extensive use of gold and silver and decorative patterns is the Rinpa school. The school that did not have a continuity of lineage in which father trained son or master trained pupil is the Rinpa school. So a lot of notable things about that. Okay, this is Yosabu-san's Cuckoo Flying Over New Verdure. The early Japanese literati painter who was famed for the lyricism of both his haiku poetry and his painting is Yosabu-san. So he was a literati. And so literati is a scholar who is also an artist. He's not an amateur artist. He's a scholar. And this that term works in both China and Japan. Okay, this is Suzuki Haranobu Evening Bell at the Clock. This is from 8 Views of the Parlor. And it's a woodblock print, but it's a series. Okay, so the artist who designed the print series entitled 8 Views of the Parlor is Suzuki Haranobu. Plant dyes were used to create the colors in the Japanese ukiyo-e prints, such as this one. The works referred to as ukiyo-e, produced by the urban counterculture of the Edo period, would not use a court ceremony as a subject. They would include more like public events, like bathhouses, kabuki theater, sumo wrestling. So it's more like it's kind of a lower end of entertainment, I would say, like comic books, but not really. I mean, that's taken a little far, but just lower end. So here we have another woodblock print, and I've seen this so many times. It's famous, but yet we don't have any notes about it. Kitagawa Utamaro Ohisa of the Takashima tea shop from the Edo period. Okay, here we have one everybody knows. It's almost like the Japanese Starry Night, right? The Great Wave off Kanawaga by Hokusai, Katsushika Hokusai. Fun to say. The medium that Katsushika Hokusai used to create the Great Waves off Kanagawa is woodblock. A Japanese element in Hokusai's Great Wave off Kanawaga is the flat triangles of the waves that are flattened in the foreground. Okay, I keep reading that line and I wonder exactly what they mean. I mean, I guess it does appear to be pretty flat. I can always argue that because the layering to me shows things in the distance, the overlapping. But we gotta listen to the notes. The two Japanese printmakers who were acclaimed for landscapes are Ando Hiroshige and Katsushika Hokusai. This is Takahashi Yuichi Oiran Grand Courtesan of the Meiji period. And this, notice, is oil on canvas, 1872. So the following aspects of this painting that do not reflect Western influences is the abstract rendering of the garment, the oil paint, accurate rendering of the coiffure, and the realistic facial detailing all do reflect the Western influence. The major artistic genre that was introduced in Japan in the late 19th century is oil painting. Western art. Okay, Kano Hogai, Bodhisattva canon. So here we have, some Buddhism, kind of. Maybe that's not Buddhism and I get those religions mixed up, but I thought Bodhisattva was Buddhists. Don't quote me on that. The primary patron of Kano Masaobu, who founded the Kano style, was the Muromachi shogunate. So the shoguns. Cool. The subject of this Nihonga painting by Kano Hogai is the creation of man. The name of the genre in which Western techniques such as chiaroscuro, perspective, and bright hues used in Japanese-style paintings is Nihonga. So this is Nihonga. Almost done. So this is a stadium, Olympic stadium, built in Tokyo in the 60s by Kenzo Tange. It's so different than ours, isn't it? Just the wings and the ribbing. The Japanese Olympic stadiums that were built, the Japanese Olympic stadiums were built during the Showa period. Showa. Okay, this is Hamada Shoji. This is a large plate during the Showa period in the 50s. This is porcelain with the enamel glaze. The leading figure in the folk art movement of modern Japan who created this work is Hamada Shoji. The formative figure in Japan's folk movement who promoted an ideal of beauty in functional objects made from natural objects is actually Yanagi Soetsu, but they're both folk art, considered folk art movement artists. Okay, Kazuo Shiraga. Okay, here we're getting into some performance art. He's making a work with his own body in the mud. So that's, this is the documentation of the performance. Okay, whoops, too fast. Okay, here we have a few notes that I wanted to add. This is great stuff here, good facts, and discussion questions. I love the whole Zen Buddhism. I mean, the whole idea of that. That would be a great paper. Okay, done.